What's up, besties? This week, I want to talk about rich people. No surprise here, we as a society are obsessed with rich people. We care about what they're wearing, what they're eating. There's a reason why shows like Selling Sunset, Bling Empire, Billions, and Succession are all such big hits. But this morbid curiosity very quickly can turn into hate. And this has recently manifested in a really interesting way. And that these days, when we think and see rich people on TV or on the news, we kind of want them to be going through it. We want them to suffer. Seriously, think about it. You've got shows like White Lotus, which are amazing. And if you haven't watched, you should. TLDR, it's an entire series about rich people going on vacation and their vacations either being absolutely horrible or their entire lives falling apart. Anything ranging from infidelity to major arguments to even murder. It kind of makes us happy to see them not have this picture perfect life like we're led to believe. The same way that we kind of like to see these tabloid headlines of cheating scandals or bankruptcy announcements, it makes us feel good to know that even people with a lot of money, their lives still suck too. The theme of some of these major TV shows and movies is essentially eat the rich. I have 3 different ideas and concepts that I think it's really important for us to discuss. So let's get to it. 1. I think we're mad at the wrong rich people. I've been making content on social media for a hot minute now, and I get a ton of comments saying things like, "Oh, this girl sucks. She's always talking about being rich." I'm a millionaire, not a billionaire. And millionaires are infinitely closer to being homeless than they are to being billionaires. What society essentially preys on us doing is that if we are infighting lower income people, middle income people, and even higher income people, then we're not focused on the actual problem, which is billionaires and corporations that pay fewer taxes than individual human beings. On top of that, I've got a pretty good story for you. Back in 2011 and 2012, there was a movement called Occupy Wall Street. And I wasn't working as a trader just yet, but I did have colleagues that went through that. I asked, "Hey, was that really disruptive to your career?" And they laughed. They said that the Occupy Wall Street protesters would actually show up to protest at 9 a.m. and would leave by 2 when they were all getting into the office at 6, 7 a.m. and weren't leaving again till 12 to 14 hours later. In fact, the only people who were harmed or inconvenienced by these protesters were the analysts, the lowest paid individuals being overworked on the desk, running out at lunchtime to grab lunch for their 8 different team members, carry back all those salads and foods and soups and, even in the afternoon, potentially getting a coffee run. It really goes to show that even though that movement had its heart in the right place, it didn't end up really impacting the folks in the corner office who were truly the entity of Wall Street. It ended up impacting the little guy. And that interaction basically taught me that the working rich are not the enemy. Sure, I'm not asking you to feel bad for some Wall Street employee who makes $400,000 a year. They certainly have a comfortable life. They take 2 really nice vacations every year. They have their 2.5 kids, the golden retriever. They likely own a home that they have a mortgage on. But they worry about all of the same things that quote unquote poor people worry about. They worry about their bills, they worry about their groceries, and they worry about the futures for their family. The billionaires and these corporations aren't working rich. They're getting rich by exploiting other people. I can't agree that that's the right thing to do. That's probably a big part of why we associate being rich with being bad. I had to, science experiment my way through this, and to prove my point, I actually just posted an Instagram story and I asked the BFFs, what are some of your preconceived notions about rich people? Here were the top results. They're lazy, they're out of touch with reality, they're entitled, they're rude to service people, they're cheap AF, they're snobby, stuck up, arrogant, they're greedy, they're scammers, they're elitists. Like, seriously, you guys went all in on these people. Sure, there were a few positive traits mentioned, like they're hardworking or educated and they know how to invest. Those positive comments were few and far between, and a lot more people left me nasty comments about what they thought about rich people. I get it. As life gets harder and harder for the middle class, this resentment for those who have a lot grows, of course. How could it not? We watch movies like Wolf of Wall Street or the Bernie Madoff documentary when these very rich guys were in fact very bad guys. And don't get me wrong, generally speaking, I don't disagree with a lot of the results from my poll. I've been to some really nice restaurants and it was abundantly clear that very privileged people were abusing the waitstaff to the point where one time I was at a restaurant and the GM literally thanked me for being nice. No one should get brownie points for doing the bare minimum and just being a decent human being. That's weird. And listen, I'm making some generalizations here because there are certainly some very nice, thoughtful, rich people, but broadly I think there is a divide between rich people who have had to work for their money versus those who have just fallen into it because of rich parents or good fortune. And again, I'm not arguing that it's not important to have rich parents. In fact, having rich parents is the number one indicator that you yourself will become rich. But that leads me into my final point. Being rich often feels like a club that the bouncer won't let you into. And I think that's problematic for a few reasons. One, it's not true. A 2019 study published by WealthX found that around 68% of those with a net worth of $30 million or more made it themselves. A second study by Fidelity Investments found that 88% of all millionaires are self-made, meaning they didn't inherit their wealth. I think that the myth that, you can't become a rich person is problematic because it sets an expectation that how it is how it's gonna be. And that's not true. Being rich is not inherently bad, nor is it a permanent status. In fact, most wealthy families lose their wealth within 3 generations, and a lot of that is due to misappropriation. Generation 1 makes all this money. Generation 2 doesn't know how to manage it. They don't make that much, and they spend way more than that money is able to earn in interest. And by Generation 3, it's kind of gone. So just as quickly as rich families can lose their money, I need you to understand and believe that you can make that money. You can build generational wealth even if your parents or your grandparents weren't able to. You can become the first millionaire in your family by maximizing your income, investing for the future, and making a plan. And don't worry if this is all making your head spin, stick around, watch a few other videos on the channel, and we will be covering a lot of how to do this in the coming weeks and months. I do want to close out by encouraging all of my BFFs to reach financial freedom, whatever that may look like for you. If more women, people of color, and the LGBTQ community and marginalized groups get rich, what do you think happens? We're gonna start patronizing different businesses than the current status quo. We're gonna start eating at the local Chinese restaurant. We're gonna start shopping at that small up-and-coming LGBTQ designer store. We're gonna start buying baked goods from that woman in the PTA group who's starting a small business, and we are able to support people in our communities. Those communities start to get more and more money, and nothing bad happens when we give them more money because that allows them to support these populations that have never had this chance at financial security in the past. A rising tide really does raise all ships. And this is all to say, if you're watching, if you're a BFF, I hope you get rich. And if you stick around, we'll do it together. See ya, besties.